Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Turbocharged by SASE, Network Transformation in 2021, a six-part series where we'll be taking a deep dive into SASE and how it can transform digital businesses. In this, the second episode, we're diving deeper into Zero Trust Network Access, ZTNA, and how exactly SASE and ZTNA are coming to figure so large in the future of cybersecurity. I'm John Burke, CTO at Nemertes Research, and today I'll be joined by Eyal Weber-Zwick, VP and Product Marketing at Cato.
Hi, everyone.
For those of you who aren't familiar with Nemertes, we're a research and strategic advisory company, and we focus on doing primary research on our own dime to uncover how businesses realize the value of emerging technologies, what kind of business benefits they can realize by deploying the new, by deploying the emerging. And one of our recurring topics has been the evolving wide area network and the rise of SD-WAN, the rise of SASE, and the merging of networking and security. And that brings us to today's topic. Eyal, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into the discussion.
Sure, thank you very much. My name is Eyal. I'm VP of Product Marketing at Cato Networks. I've been with the company for a little over 5 years now, really from the early beginning. Started as head of product management from the engineering and transitioned to marketing a few years later, and very happy to be here.
Great to have you and looking forward to the conversation. So why don't we start with what is Zero Trust Network Access, and why do you see it as foundational to the future of cybersecurity?
So Zero Trust Network Access is the evolvement of traditional and legacy VPNs. We had to allow remote workers to grant access to corporate resources. And in previous time, the way to do it is by deploying some kind of a server or a VPN concentrator, and through this device, connecting remote users to the needed resources. The problem is that those VPN concentrators would grant access on a network level to remote users, which in modern times is not secure enough. You need to granularly control who accesses what on the network. And ZTNA is designed to do that with a slight different architecture of delivering it as a blueprint over the top of the network, like specific access to specific applications and not to entire networks. And obviously, that's part of where the networks are going. Now, everybody needs to work from home. COVID proved this to everybody all over the world. So we need to allow everyone to connect from remote. That's one. But on the other hand, we don't want to compromise on security. That's two. And the way to achieve this is to deliver everything through a secure cloud infrastructure.
And when we look at it, the defining characteristics are that cloud architecture, which makes it not just far more scalable for a business than the traditional VPN approach, because you don't have to buy and install and configure new equipment and then carry that burden forward. Instead, you're scaling up your use of a cloud provisioned resource, which leads directly to the second benefit that we see, which is agility. Again, if something changes on the inside of your data center and you need to change how folks access things, you don't have to reconfigure or redeploy VPN appliances. You are just changing policies in some kind of a cloud-based access mechanism. So we see ZTNA as foundational because it speeds up the reaction time of network security and network access in the face of rapidly changing conditions in data centers or in cloud environments. So yeah, we're right with you there. So given that we're seeing ZTNA as critical to providing secure access from everywhere, that work from home piece, and agile access to everything, how does SASE fit into the picture?
Well, first of all, SASE, you spoke about how critical it is to be agile and dynamic. And that's part of what digital transformation means. It means that businesses move to a world where if they don't act fast, they get thrown out of business. It's really a cease or desist kind of situation. And remote access is just one. They need to be agile across the board of everything in IT infrastructure. And this is one area where SASE comes in, because having a unified platform for all their network and security needs, not only remote access, gives them agility across the board. That's one aspect. The other thing is that SASE, as a cloud platform, have more capabilities that the ZTNA use case can benefit from. One example is the global private backbone. Users who use ZTNA not from a SASE provider would have access through a cloud broker to specific applications, but this traffic would not be optimized. It would just be managed by the ZTNA provider. On a SASE case, the remote user will have the same granular access control, but the traffic would ride the SASE global private backbone instead of the public internet, allowing optimized access and improved application performance. So when all your workers move to work from remote, they don't compromise, or they don't need to compromise on productivity and experience. That's one aspect. The second thing is that you, as an IT, you always prefer to have centralized control and governance. When your ZTNA provides one aspect of security and your network security provides other security capabilities, your security control is split across multiple products. And when ZTNA is part of SASE, it actually goes through the exact same security mechanisms, modules, capabilities as your Office users. So your security across your entire enterprise, regardless of where the users are and how they connect, is unified. And that is critical not only to the agility, but also to the visibility and control and compliance of the enterprise.
Exactly. The complementarity between the CASB style functionality and controlling and providing visibility for access into sanctioned cloud apps and secure web gateway functionality for providing access to the rest of the broader internet. Those are key synergies that you can realize between ZTNA and the rest of SASE. And as you say, centralizing that policy engine, making it consistent across all these avenues is a huge potential win anyway for IT and security operations inside the enterprises. So Cato says that granular level controls, which are why Zero Trust Network Access exists, that those complement the identity-driven approach to network access that SASE demands. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yes, of course. That's actually an interesting point in kind of the history of SASE. It's a short history, but there's still history here. SASE is a combination of a convergence of network and security. In the network world, products don't understand identity. They understand applications and protocol. You can prioritize applications over others, but they don't understand who is the user. When you look at security products, secure web gateways, next-gen firewalls, everything that you put on the network, they all understand identity. That's the basic, because everything is set based on the identity of the user. When a SASE delivers a true convergence, the same user identity context is shared throughout. And there you can apply a set of policies that don't care about how the user is connected to the service. All we care about is who is the user. Everything becomes identity-driven. Quality of service is identity-driven. Access to applications is identity-driven. You start from identity on one side and destinations or resources on the other side, and you set the policy between those. You completely take away from the equation the underlying method of how the user is connected to the enterprise network.
And that completing the journey from our past, where everything was really focused on IP addresses, which have never been a great proxy for anything except where somebody's attached to the network,
Right.
getting entirely away from that IP address centric view of the network for security, for performance, for anything, and moving entirely towards what we see as the future, which is identity-centric networking, just like we're talking about identity-centric security. Getting to that future is crucial for a world in which this work from home morphs into a much more fluid work from anywhere environment. You know, it was already evolving before the pandemic struck. Already before COVID became a big deal, our research was showing that less than 40% of wide area network traffic for the typical enterprise was, excuse me, the traditional inside to inside traffic, you know, from a site at the company to a site at the company. And the rest of it was starting outside or ending outside or both. That was pre-COVID. COVID just hit the gas pedal on that and accelerated the transformation. And the remnants of IP address centric security and performance management have to fall away for that transformation to become complete. So we're right in line on that one. So when a business is thinking about adopting a SASE platform, what kinds of considerations should they be taking into account? What should they be looking for or looking at?
So first of all, I think we're in a good place where businesses are considering SASE. IT leaders need to understand that SASE is a journey. It's a process of migrating the network from legacy solutions to a SASE platform. And what they need to make sure is that the SASE platform that they choose can actually deliver on the promise of SASE. So if you go back to what SASE is trying to achieve, it's trying to cloudify network and network security, move them from on-prem appliances to the cloud. It needs to be available globally, so you are not limited by physical appliances or virtual appliances in physical data centers. It needs to support all edges, so it doesn't distinguish, like we said, between users connecting from remote or users from the office.
Yep.
And it needs to be cloud native in a way that it would scale up with the enterprise. When you make such a big strategic decision to move to a SASE, you need to make sure that 1-2 years into the future, with your next M&A, with your next big hyper growth, whatever good business development comes in, you're not hitting the ceiling of your SASE capabilities. And that starts first and foremost with the SASE architecture. The features list comes later, right? So you can have this or that SD-WAN capabilities on the network side. You can have more or less security capabilities. When the SASE has the right architecture, it would evolve with the business and with the demand to address everything the customer needs. When you focus on the features and not on the architecture, then you might, check all the boxes, but when business events, when digital transformation events happen, cloud migration, COVID-19, M&As, all those things, then you might hit the wall, and that would be very bad. So I think the thing that IT needs to focus on when considering a SASE is to first identify that they are looking at vendors who deliver the right architecture that can actually provide the capabilities of SASE. And then they should see what features they have or what capabilities they have today in the network and network security, and make sure that whatever the SASE provides is available for them today or in the near future, if it's sometimes still in development.
Oh, yes. Yeah, slideware SASE is a very popular sales item, unfortunately. Yes. Yeah, we would throw into that a couple of other considerations. One being the ability to use feature sets essentially independently, so you don't have to go whole hog with all the features as soon as you hit the ground with it. The ability to bring it to parts of your population or environment and then expand from that. And excuse me, the ability to integrate it into the rest of your especially your security operating environment. So the ability to field alerts in the mechanisms you're used to in your SOC, the ability to get telemetry data in a usable way into your SIEM system if you're running one, and you should be, and looking forward and watching other trends in the enterprise around application and more broadly solution development, APIs, so that you can programmatically pull that status information if you need to into a dashboard you're developing, or push configuration changes into that management portal if you have adopted the infrastructure as code approach to providing environments for the applications that you do develop or deploy in your own data centers, in your own IaaS spaces. So we would layer some things on like that, but all of them very much focused on practical integration of SASE into the environment. And again, as you say, independent of specific security feature functionality, like will it block this or will it streamline that for my users. Streamlining is a good thing too. Let me just throw a plug in for solutions that make your end users' lives easier and their access to their applications faster than the, say, VPN solution that you're replacing as a part of this migration.
Right. Yeah. So I think when ZTNA comes as part of the SASE, this is one of the revolutionary aspects that we see here, where delivering high security doesn't come at the expense of the performance. We already had this balance where if you wanted higher security, you would pay a penalty in the application performance. And when it's part of a SASE platform, you don't pay the penalty. You can actually benefit from both worlds, the optimization that the SASE cloud offers and the security that the SASE cloud offers. And I think that's unique, and it's very appealing. Because again, we always need to look at things from, and I agree with what you're saying, from the prism of a digital business that needs to move fast, needs to be productive, need to be agile, need to be dynamic, to respond to changing business environments all the time. If IT stay with point solutions that they need to stitch together, to configure, to integrate, to do all those things, they become the inhibitor of business growth. If they move to a cloud platform, they become enablement. I can give an example from outside the SASE world. If you think about exchange services, 5 years ago, a company of 500 employees doing a merger with another 500 employees means that the IT team now need to think about what server they need to buy, what Windows operating system, install Exchange on it, how much RAM, how much storage, where the backup, do we upgrade the legacy one, do we keep the old version for consistency? So many questions. And today with Office 365, it's a credit card transaction to add 500 users. It's that simple. It's a no-brainer anymore. It should be exactly the same for network and network security. We're opening a branch overseas, no-brainer. We need to move 1,000 employees to work from home overnight. It should be a no-brainer. This is what ZTNA as part of a SASE looks like.
And it's good to keep in mind for companies that have set for themselves a goal of minimizing capital expenses and capital equipment, that shifting to this kind of cloud provisioned network edge will greatly reduce or in some cases eliminate that level of investment. When you can get down to the part where a branch connection to the network is no longer a capital expense because the device is simple enough and low enough cost, a lot of companies will have crossed a major threshold. So
I want to add just another angle to that. When you move from buying products to buying a subscription, there is a different DNA to the relation between the customer and the vendor. When you buy a product, it's a financial transaction. Someone sold you the product, they handed it over to you, it's shipped, it's arrived, now it's on you, right? And you're stuck with it for 3 to 5 years. When you buy a subscription, it's a relationship, because if our customers are not happy, they would churn, they would leave us and go to another vendor. We need to work day to day to make sure they are happy, the service is stable, the features they expect are delivered, it's performing as they expected. We deliver on all the promises that we make. we have to work much harder for customer satisfactory. So beside the conversion from CapEx to OpEx, there's a higher guarantee of customers being satisfied with service providers.
And honestly, there is also another level of acceleration implicit in that, because if, as you say, they don't like you and they want to move to some other subscription-based network system, it's no longer a 3 to 5 year process to migrate from one network solution to another in all of their branch locations. For a large organization, it becomes a 6 month to a year kind of an operation, and with no truck rolls to install or reinstall or deinstall, and all of that. American colloquialism, foofara. All of that fuss goes away, and it becomes just a matter of basically switching what you're subscribed to, reprogramming something, and you're done.
Correct.
Okay, so what are some practical steps then that a business can take to leverage SASE specifically for zero trust network access?
So I think every business that needs zero trust network access today should start by understanding what they need. The first tactic, I know I'm stating the obvious, but it's not clear to everyone. You need to understand what security you want to enforce. It's beyond access control. You also want to take the traffic through some threat prevention, IPS, anti-malware, DLP, anything of that sort. You also want to understand what are the application performance that you want to deliver over the ZTNA solution. And then you need to look at the vendors that can address both those needs. When you're making the shift from traditional VPN to ZTNA, you don't want to make one increment. You want to make a strategic decision on the platform that you're choosing. So you need to weigh all those requirements that you have as an enterprise against what the different SASE ZTNA providers can offer you. That's one thing. The second thing is to look at things from a strategic perspective and not a tactical one. We're solving the ZTNA issue today, but we will have to refresh our next-gen firewalls tomorrow. And we will need to renew or not renew our MPLS the year after. If we go for a SASE platform and not standalone ZTNA, we already have all those capabilities in the platform that we're using. We just need to flip a switch and enable it. If we chose a standalone ZTNA solution, when we need to refresh our firewalls, we start with another process of evaluation and speaking with vendors, watching presentations, doing POCs, and all this hassle. We can avoid that by making the right strategic decision. I think that to a large extent, IT didn't have the option to make such strategic decisions until now. And now with the cloudification of network and network security to SASE platforms, it's actually available today. And it's definitely something that IT needs to look into thoroughly.
I think you've put your finger on something important that sometimes doesn't make it into these discussions, which is that, yes, you are adopting essentially a single platform across a broad set of security functions and network functions. And that comes with some inherent risk. If there's something wrong with the platform, lots of things might be affected and not just one. But on the other hand, when essentially IT in every organization is acting as the cloud service provider in this sense, is acting as the integrator and manager across all those slots, they still have to do some integrations. They still have to make things work with each other. And the fact that not everything is at risk when any piece is at risk doesn't mean that any piece breaking doesn't shut the whole thing down. It does. It's just that it's your responsibility as the enterprise IT folks to fix it, and you have to be able to fix it with the resources that you have. And in most organizations, the bench is not real deep. You've got typically one person who's great with it, another person who's almost as good, and then maybe nobody. There's some considerations there on the relative risk of having somebody else integrate it versus you integrate it as an organization. And in between, there is the comprehensive security suite from a single vendor that is in some cases available. You can go to one vendor and get the next generation firewall, get the CASB solution, get all these things with the expectation that they'll all integrate cleanly, and mostly the realization after the fact that they don't, that they still act like separate solutions, and that the level of integration is pretty minimal a lot of the time until a product has been 3 to 5 years in the same portfolio as the other products. Whereas with a cloud solution, typically, if the different functional units you're working with are all included in the offering, they're all managed together and in a truly integrated way right off the bat. There's no 3 to 5 year period of, well, is it or isn't it truly a part of this suite? And I think that's a benefit that a lot of folks need to really take some time and think through, because they don't think too often about how much of their admin's time is spent in dealing with the things that aren't actually integrated, that are still managed separately, even though they pretend to be part of a suite.
I actually have many conversations with IT about, we call this the hidden costs of IT.
Yep.
It's the integration, the troubleshooting, the repetitive evaluation of buying refreshment for existing solutions that can really go away when you move to a cloud service. And I totally agree with you that it takes maturity. We're very proud that Cato has had the SASE vision 5 years before Gartner coined the acronym. So we're already five years into maturing our SASE service, and there aren't separate management consoles. You don't feel like it's an integration of product on our solution. You feel like it's one holistic solution that covers everything. You can actually set quality of service rules for users, which is a tip that I often give to people who ask me, how can I evaluate that a SaaS is a true convergence and not an integration? I tell them, it's a simple test. See if you can configure quality of service that voice over IP of sales has higher priority than voice over IP of engineering. If you can't do this because it's an integration of one SD-WAN from one vendor or portfolio and secure web gateway from another, it's not a true SASE. But if it's a true SASE, it's really a simple and single rule on the platform. And I think that with all this slideware that is going around SASE now, IT need to spend some time and educate themselves. We, by the way, have a training or a SASE certification available, sponsored by Cato Networks, so everyone can go in and educate themselves. And we offer POC for customers who want to try hands-on, which I strongly recommend, not only on Cato, but on everyone else. You can, by the way, subscribe to it or request a POC from the attachment panel. And this way you can go in, try it for yourself. You have to get hands-on. This is not something that you buy as a black box. You have to feel it, and you have to see that it really delivers on the promises. And I can also tell you that when we do POCs with customers, we ask them explicitly, show us where you have the biggest pain in your infrastructure. Let's do the POC there. We don't want the easy test. We want to go for the hardest, because this is where we can shine. We can actually show the breadth of our value in a very quick 2 to 3 days proof of concept.
And what you're really talking about is that this future-facing convergence of network and security into sort of a seamless whole that we've seen coming up with things like SD-WAN especially, that its natural end state is SASE, and that essentially goes from being a security solution to being a network solution as well. That it is the combination. It is that combination that SASE is the evolution of network as a service, as well as the evolution of security at that level. Is network as a service what businesses need going forward to survive in the world we see developing?
So the straightforward answer is absolutely yes. The network still exists, despite what some cloud security vendors say, which lack the network side of SASE and kind of dilute the SASE message that network, there is no network anymore. It's just internet, and we all go to resources on the internet. Everybody still has either on-prem data centers or something in AWS or Azure, which just moves the servers from being on-prem to someone else's data center as a virtual machine. But that's still east-west traffic. It needs to be optimized. It needs to be secured. It needs to be monitored. It has all the requirements that they had when it was on-premise. And even cloud applications, not all of them are globally distributed like Office 365 and Google for Business. Many of them are still regional. If you sign up with Salesforce, your data is stored in one Salesforce location. So how, as a global organization, can you optimize access to that Salesforce application? It's really critical to have a network as part of your SASE solution to make sure that in the process of cloud migration, you don't give away performance that otherwise, in previous years, you paid tons of money for with MPLS and WAN optimizers to make sure that they perform well. When we move them to the cloud, we still need to take care of the performance.
So are there challenges a business should expect to face when it tries to leverage SASE and specifically for zero trust?
Well, there's always challenges. I'm trying to think if there is something more specific. You need to maybe understand where you are in your digital transformation journey. And in this context, see what do you want to achieve first with ZTNA, whether it's access to on-prem applications or to cloud applications, and exactly what is the populations of users that you're looking to serve and how you enroll them. It takes some challenge. Sometimes the user experience, the clients change, and it looks a bit different. So there's always some friction around that. But I think that if IT plan for it correctly and do the proper evaluation and preparation before, then everything is manageable.
From our perspective, it's not necessarily unique to SASE for zero trust network access, but there is generally still a big gap in enterprises' self-knowledge, if you will, about who actually needs access to what. And that in this kind of a context, like with privileged access management or some other kinds of security rollouts, they should expect a significant period of introspection and learning around those things as they fine-tune who has access to what. Not just making sure people can get to everything they should have, but on the obverse, making sure that they don't have access to things they shouldn't have, which was the besetting fault of the traditional VPN. To be manageable, you had to have too broad a set of access privileges. If you wanted to really tighten things down and only give people access to what they needed, you wound up absolutely splintering your VPNs and giving yourself a much larger management burden, making it unsustainable.
And I think that's part of a SASE and ZTNA evaluation. It needs to tie in and integrate and synchronize with your user directory. So you don't need to manage this one by one. You can say, look, this organization unit or user group needs access to this and that applications, and then it just happens. And when you migrate other functions like next-gen firewall to the cloud, it automatically inherits those rules. You don't need to reconfigure them. Having that said, the technology refresh is always a great time to relook at your security policies. It forces you to go through it, and it's, you'll always find something that you could have tweaked and, and tightened better.
Absolutely. And, we've touched on a lot of potential benefits by way of simplification of the environment for network administrators and security engineers. So there's obviously a lot of time that can be saved there. We've talked about different functional pieces that SASE can take the place of. What kinds of cost benefits do you think people should expect if they roll out a SASE solution?
So first of all, there is Usually the total cost of ownership, when you migrate things to the cloud economy allows it to deliver same functionalities at a lower cost. So you would see a total cost of ownership reduction, especially when you do a full SASE migration. It might not manifest in the first phases, but it will manifest in the full deployment. ZTNA might be tricky, and IT needs to be aware of that, because with traditional VPN solutions, you would usually license concurrent sessions and not named seats. And ZTNA solutions are priced by named seats or total user count, not the concurrent sessions. But this also is what allows the scalability, right? When you had some kind of a VPN concentrator that could only support 200 concurrent sessions, it worked before COVID for some of the employees some of the time. That's what it was needed for. When you move to ZTNA, it would scale elastically to whatever amount of concurrent users that you need. In Cato, we jumped March 2019 to March 2020. Sorry, March 2020 to March 2021. We started in March 2020. We had about 15,000 concurrent users. Today, we are nearing 100,000 concurrent users. We didn't change the software. We didn't change the architecture. The cloud scaled with more compute and networking resources elastically without downtime. We can achieve that with cloud economies, with this pricing model, and IT needs to understand that there is a change here on one side. On the other side, they didn't need to run now and buy additional VPN servers just to support the transition to working from home. So there's change in economy for one, but it's also a transition from CapEx to OpEx and everything that we spoke about earlier.
It's also a much clearer and more intuitively obvious cost curve. I get more users, I pay more for them, and it follows very smoothly the number of users. I might get discounts when I hit certain tiers, but
Correct.
There's no jaggedness to it. Whereas with VPNs, it's that classic 101st person problem. It can handle 100 people, 101, my cost doubles, and then
Right.
I'm good until 200.
Yeah, it's linear. I agree. Yeah.
And all that waste capacity for the interim while I don't get to 200 people. And if I never do, it's excess capacity that I've bought and never used. So I think that's another one of those benefits of the cloud model that folks need to really take into account when they're looking at the benefits. And you know, all of those operational and management costs for the different specific point solutions get merged into a single set of management and monitoring costs for the cloud solution. So you no longer have to worry about somebody being cross-trained on the fine points of managing the firewalls as appliances, because they're not anymore. And it's just another set of policies. And if you can write this set of policies, you can write that set of policies.
Correct.
There's a lot of layers of savings that can come in when you start to see this sort of merged solution. So let me see. What about the experiences of actual Cato users? Are there some success stories that you can share specifically around zero trust network access with your solution?
Sure, absolutely. So the majority of Cato customers didn't come to us for zero trust, at least not until COVID. They were already subscribers of our service for the network and network transformation and security as a service. But when COVID hit, they actually didn't lose any sleep. And we kept hearing this over and over again. It's also on our customers' webpage, on our website. There's a lot of evidence and customer quotes there that say that moving over 1,000 employees to Cato's remote access solution happened overnight, and it just worked. And they didn't need to worry about anything. They didn't lose any sleep. It was the easiest migration they could imagine. And there was another add-on to that we were actually got emails forwarded to us of end users telling their IT that with the new remote access solution, the performance is actually better than it was before because they don't backhaul anymore. And this, infamous experience of connecting from remote and nothing works or it's super slow has no longer been their experience, to a degree that they felt they need to write to IT about it. And if you look at it from IT perspective, COVID hit. Even if they didn't have a BCP plan, they had the technology to deliver business continuity. They delivered it overnight. End users are super happy to a degree that they are writing thank you letters. They became the ultimate champions of the organization in the times that the organization was struggling the most. I think that every IT person on the world would like to be in that position, that when it rains and it rains heavy, you are the one with the biggest umbrella to protect anyone.
No, being the hero is always a powerful reward for work well done. And you're touching again on the user experience, and I think that that is a recurring theme I hear from folks who have deployed solutions like this, is that they've made their users' lives easier and improved the performance that they experience when they make use of that solution, as opposed to their old VPN system. And that pair of better performance and a simpler user experience is very powerful for end users. They feel really happy about that, and yeah, sometimes they share. So we're in our last few minutes here. Let's wrap on sharing what you see as the number one benefit that enterprises can experience when they not just embrace SASE, but specifically go to Zero Trust Network Access in that context.
So I think the number one, trying to summarize everything, is the improved security posture of granular access control without the compromise on performance.
And again, thinking of sort of the obverses of things, the enormous simplification of the environment, which pays off and benefits not just to end users in performance, and not just to IT administrators in terms of their day-to-day life getting easier, but in terms of improved enterprise security. Because
absolutely,
when it gets easier and more straightforward to see exactly how things are secured, to know where all the layers are, because they're all in one place essentially, and to be able to see exactly how the settings work together, IT's opportunity to miss something decreases dramatically, and enterprise security improves as a result. You know, there's nothing like visibility and consistency for getting rid of a lot of human errors.
And if everything is managed by the service provider and you don't need to worry about maintenance and integration and troubleshooting, you can focus on finding what's wrong, fine-tuning policies, making sure the configuration is adequate to what the business needs. You can actually focus on your real job and not on the underlying labor that has been taken away. And now it's someone else's headache.
Improvements and optimizations instead of just keeping the wheels on. Yep.
Correct.
It's a huge win for any business with any kind of an IT product solution space. So great, a wonderful, happy thought to wrap on there. Thank you, Eyal, for joining us and sharing your perspectives and your insights on SASE, on Zero Trust Network, and on all the benefits that folks can realize in that space. And everybody who's joined us, thank you for joining us for this, the second episode in Cato's Turbocharged by SASE Network Transformation in 2021 series. Now be sure before you exit to pop over to that attachment section and register to join us for episode 3, which will be called Implementing SASE in the Global Enterprise, Best Practices for SASE Success. And with that, we'll sign off. We'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.